one of the things that really struck me was how little we generally, as a digitized society, how little we imagine anymore, how little we sort of are okay with long answers, with discomfort. Working with young folks who live in this algorithmically optimized universe, they see frustration as a bug, not a feature of learning. They see, not all of them, right? But many. And there is this, AI to me has been this raw, reflective mirror where a lot of us have said, hey, look, yeah, we adopted it here, but now we don't know what to do. Well, that's on us, because I realized, well, hell, like we're fairly limited creatures. And this thing that can decode our language and create this pretty impressive semantic map of thinking through just that has started to make us question our very humanity. I mean, to me, that feels a little bit fragile, and it feels like we're conflating being a digital consumer / creator with being a human being. And AI is never, ever going to be able to do what I'm doing right now, right? AI, and I could do this in silence, but AI is never going to be able to do that. AI is never going to be able to sit in a room with somebody, right, who has cancer and just sit with them in silence. And for both of you all to feel like there's something there, that's so human. It makes up the vast majority of who we are, if not 99% of who we are. This digital experience that we have makes up such a specific and short-lived in the human experience stretch of existence. Yet we've conflated being human with that so much that we're worried that AI is going to take over something or another. That to me has been sort of the spiritual shakeup that's really hit me over the last couple of years.
It's powerful. Kunal, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I often think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and is AI going to enable more people to achieve, self-actualization, the peak, fulfillment through creativity and purpose and self-expression? Or are we doing so at the expense of safety? Because truth is difficulty now. Being online isn't necessarily safe. What is real, what isn't real causes consternation. Love and esteem, are those all problems? Are those all things that we're skipping over? So I get kind of concerned by that.
So you think that it's not living up to its potential in helping people reach that higher level of consciousness, or do you think that it will help us get there?
I hope it will, but I remain skeptical. I'm excited about AI replacing human processes and making them much more efficient and feeding people, right? But are we going to be able to rely on that kind of efficiency to achieve self-actualization? I don't know. That's more, I think, in Dr. Gibbard's department.
Yeah, I was going to say Catherine Russo. I'm curious.
I feel like all eyes on me for this one. Appreciate it. But yeah, there's so much to kind of reflect on. So for a couple years, I've been pretty bullish about AI's capability to demonstrate empathy. So prior to, what we've seen more recently this year, I felt like this was coming, and it's been pretty surreal for it to unfold and then have all these, headlines that are deeply concerning about AI-induced psychosis, all sorts of inappropriate relationships, etc. So I think a lot of warning signs there. But there's also like a really interesting lens to me around, what does it mean to have performative empathy, and can people still gain benefit from that if it is kind of governed appropriately? And so I think it's also been fascinating on the more positive side to see results around, like doctors versus AI's bedside manner, and patients are actually feeling really cared for via these AI tools in a way that they were maybe missing. And so I think there's a whole lens here around what types of relationships can we augment with AI? What is a bridge too far? And I don't think it needs to be completely black and white, where if there are spots in our lives, and especially our working lives, where we don't feel like we're getting that, level of connection and empathy, is there a way that AI can actually play a beneficial role? So it's a really, really nuanced, thought-provoking topic. And I think let's just be mindful consumers is critical.
We talked about the digital natives, right? Adopting to digital technology a generation ago. We'll see AI natives probably adapting to AI technology, just as you described, where it may be a struggle for those of us with graying hair.
The other question I think it raises is like the work you do. So like, for the vast majority of human existence, we've been doing, working 70, 80 hours a week on a farm to try to create enough food to live. The Industrial Revolution kind of fixed that. But, like there's just a huge amount of drudgery in like everybody's lives. And if this technology can reduce that drudgery, like a lot of previous big sort of technological waves have, that opens up more time for self-reflection, more time for things that if you were
creativity
to work the vast majority of your time, you don't have time to reflect on. And I think that's a tremendous beneficial thing.
I would make sure that we caution, because the attention economy is a real thing, right? And like for every moment of cognitive surplus we have, there is somebody who's going to vie for that and try to monetize it. And so we've made this mistake with social media where every moment of cognitive surplus we have, now we swipe and we are now being monetized. And so I think it's nice for us to know that we can do that, but whether or not that happens, we have to actually have some sort of modeling where we know that whatever we did before, we're not going to do again. And if we don't willfully say that, then I'm worried that, yeah, sure, we'll have more time, but it's just going to be taking more things that are going to take up our attention.
You can't just change people's behavior. Like people are going to do what they want to do. You're going to have some people who take that time and spend it profitably, and others who waste it. And part of that is a broader question about, can you change culture? Because there's no like collective we, right? It's like everybody acts individually in their own interests.
I think it's going to be one thing that's really interesting is this question of what is actually uniquely human. Yeah. If, like Ernest Hemingway, his books that he wrote, like those are the artifacts created by a man. But when you have machines that can write prose, they can be creative, they can create fictional stories that are captivating, they can compose music, replicating music and artists in brilliant ways, cross genre, real time, can generate images, voices, passing exams. We have to ask this question: is being human about what we build with our hands and the outputs, or is it something else? Is it about our relationships? Is it about this inner experience? Is it about maybe more about community? So I think some of the bigger questions are: there's consciousness versus computation. There's creativity. Is that a product, or is it a part of a process? And where does the meaning come from? It's not just the output, but where do we draw meaning from the work that we do? And how do we feel about living in a world that's becoming increasingly synthetic, made by machines, the content, the video, the audio? How are we going to feel about this? And how is it going to shift the societal fabric that we're in? I think it's a big topic.
They shed some light on that, Mac. Very similarly, spiritually and being in education, the two questions that come to mind for myself, as well as a lot of the students I speak with, is where do I fit in as a human into this future, this uncertain, crazy future? And then the second question of how can I best prepare? And when I think of that second question and even the first question, the first thing that comes to my mind is really problem solve. How can I be a good problem solver? I spoke to 100 community college students not too long ago, and they said, well, what about job loss? I said, well, the company with the greatest productivity will win. They always win. Oh, well, they're getting mad at me. I'm like, well, that's the way it is. I don't know what to tell you. And then it's like, hold on. So how can we prove that we can 4X or 10X our output for our future employer, current employer, or what have you? Well, the person in this room who could solve a problem the best has probably the greatest chance of earning that job, keeping that job, moving up the ladder, what have you. So how do you then prove that? How do we become good problem solvers? Well, you need a process. You need repetition. Mm-hmm. You need reps. Like going to the gym. You need tools. You need to master those tools. and you need to be able to prove it, and if you can prove all of that and the outcomes, you can 4x to 10x your output. Well, guess what, students and professionals, you have a greater chance to earn that seat in that college that you want to go to earn that job against the other 1,000 candidates that you're going against. But I think it really comes down spiritually to me. Maybe it's because I'm in education and training, is to, where will I fit in as a human? And then how can I best prepare for that right now? Because it is so uncertain and forever changing. And, as old as time, from cavemen, to even before or after that, it's how did they invent the wheel? Well, they were solving for a problem,
Right. But Angelo, how do we not anticipate that an AI model is going to be the best problem solver in 3 to 5 years, better than anyone?
I can't disagree with that.
And then what?
Someone's gonna need to, where we've seen a lot of the magic happen that AI just cannot replicate is putting 4 very different people in a team to solve for the same challenge, different experiences, different perspectives. It's almost the same reason why we are so attracted to sport and live music, because at any given moment, those 4 musicians, one person can make a mistake, or the drummer and the bass player could be so in the pocket one night and so out of it the next night. It's that magic that happens from that human connection that I have yet to see replicate. I'm not saying that it won't happen in the future, but collective, collaborative, creative problem solving is where we've been hanging our hats on, and I've been seeing a lot of magic happen.
And I think that's where, when we had the question around, it's harder to find quality candidates, interview candidates. But I think if you're trying to isolate them, yes, it's still going to continue to be difficult. But instead, if you're trying to figure out how they work, or how they produce, whatever it is, how they work in a network situation with different people doing different things, i.e. a much more similar situation, what companies are going to look like infrastructure wise with agentic AI, that's what you're really looking for. And so this idea of like isolating a human being and seeing what's in your brain, and your brain is going to be superior to another brain. Whereas, in a lot of this, I try to sort of share this when I'm doing my sessions with teachers, is for the longest time, intelligence wasn't in a person's brain. Intelligence was what was in between people. People talked, people had conversation. Intelligence existed in the community in between people. We've turned that into this isolated sort of trophy contest of like, what's in my brain versus what's in your brain. AI is going to defeat all of us if that's what we're going to do, but it cannot defeat us when we're together. That's just not because it's not human. So it just can't do the human things. But again, if we're just sitting here being like, I did this provocation the other day where I was like, we think that this with English teachers, we're so worried that LLMs can write essays, they're not going to be critical thinkers anymore. Well, Moana didn't have a written language. She never wrote ever. Was Moana not imaginative or a creative problem solver? Were literate societies were they not critical thinkers? No, of course they were. Spent far more time being human, not writing, than we have been writing. And so much more of our communication is done like this, not written down, not digitized, therefore not any kind of AI training model. And so again, it's like the spiritual question of who we are as a human, to me, doesn't seem difficult to understand, because I don't see any AI as anything similar to me. It's just this, it's texting with text. It doesn't have feelings.
AI definitely couldn't have a beard that good.